10 a.m. on Monday, March 27th, Wichita County Commissioner's Court to order. At this time, please stand, and I believe Commissioner Watts has a guest who's going to give our guest who's going to give our
Yes, thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge. I was thinking this morning that God has blessed me. God has blessed me with friends that are extremely smarter than I happens to be one of those guys. His passion for heavy equipment like no other. He's been messing with teenager as a teenager. It is enthralled with it. Gave us tremendous support. Also, tell you that the Bible tells us in the book of James, prayer of a righteous man, powerful and I believe that, and I know that. So thank you for coming today and offering our prayer.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. Would you pray with me, please? Father, this morning as we convene this meeting, we come to you with grateful hearts. You bless us so much, and we take so much of it for granted. We live in a free country. We live in a free county, and we have faithful servants that carry out the business of this county a lot of times when we don't even realize it. Anyway, you bless us so much. We want to thank you for that. Also want to thank you publicly for the salvation that you offer so freely that we can ask for and receive. You're a faithful God. I pray this morning for the men on this court as they serve. I pray that you'll protect them, that you'll keep them from harm, protect their families. Also pray that you'll support them with your wisdom and your guidance. I pray that they will seek that on a daily basis as they make the decisions in this room and throughout the week. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. All right, if you'll join in the pledge to the U.S. flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, you may be seated. All right, this time, if you are here for the presentation for the Proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention and Adverse Childhood Experiences Awareness Month, will you come forward? Just stand around right along here. I'm going to change things up a little bit of how we normally do this. Will y'all just introduce yourselves and the organization that you're a part of?
My name is Crystal Flint, and I'm with Child Care Partners, and I'm a member of the CAPS, the Child Abuse Prevention and I'm Beth Maywald, and I facilitate the Early Childhood Coalition of Wichita County and work for the North Texas Area.
Carrie Billings with Child Care Partners, also on the CAPS committee.
I'm Denise Lucas. I'm with Helen Therapy Centers. I'm also on the ECC.
I'm Tamara Boer. I'm community engagement with To Engage, and I'm also on the ECC.
Okay. Before I read the resolution, I just wanted everyone to get a feel for who we're.
And all of these ladies
Yes.
are on the ECC.
Yes. All right. Whereas in 2022, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services confirmed 572 victims of child abuse and neglect and reported to have placed 251 children in foster or other substitute care away from their original caregivers in Wichita County. And whereas adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood, and the CDC reports that 61% of adults surveyed across 25 states reported they had experienced at least one type of ACE before age 18, and nearly 1 in 6 reported they had experienced 4 or more types of ACEs. And whereas we recognize that ACEs and child abuse and neglect happen often in the same homes, understanding that a parent with a high ACE score is more likely to mistreat their children or expose them to adverse experiences. And whereas the abuse and neglect of children, as well as other ACEs, are causing severe, costly, and lifelong problems affecting all of society, including physical and mental health problems, school failure, and criminal behavior. And whereas during the month of April, the Tacoma Child Abuse Prevention Committee, in partnership with the Early Childhood Coalition, in collaboration with their citywide partners, will be engaging individuals and communities throughout the city in a coordinated effort to reduce ACEs, increase resilience, and prevent child abuse and neglect by promoting awareness of healthy child development, positive parenting practices, and the types of support families need within our communities. Now therefore, the Wichita County Commissioners Court hereby proclaims April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Wichita County and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. So proclaimed this 27th day of March 2023. Thank you all for what you are doing as an organization and in each of your own individual spheres to help parents, help kids, and then therefore help our community deal with this problem. We thank you all for what you do. And ultimately, I mean, as the resolution says, we're dedicating all of us to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. It's a job that starts at home and then spreads out throughout the community. And so we want to bring a little awareness to the month and what y'all are doing, and thank you for all of it. Do y'all have anything you'd like to add and say?
Thank y'all.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, good deal.
And we're hosting Party for Prevention on Saturday.
Yes, Saturday.
Go ahead and get the details. Just to
Okay,
see you
just
got
like
the
right
floor.
here.
Party for Prevention will be on Saturday at Park Central, which is the corner of Scott and 8, from 10 to 3. And we'll have over 30 community organizations and small businesses there setting up booths. Every booth will have a game or activity for families to do with some prizes. So the point is to provide a free activity for all families in our community to come together and have those positive experiences together so that families can see, you know, what it is to have that positive time as a family, as a group, at no cost. And it also exposes them to other local agencies where they could go for help later, or if they have to deal with those issues later, they've already kind of seen our faces.
Good deal. Any other events that you want to announce? Do you have the time to do that?
On April 22nd, Child Care Partner is sponsoring Dr. Jennifer Johnson and Kids Power to do an afternoon of learning about what we can do to help protect our kids from sexual abuse. So that'll be a good opportunity to hear lots of information for parents.
There will also be, it's not April, but it's May 4th, and it will be a foster care simulation. And so we will be doing it at Colonial Church, and we will walk you through kind of what it's like to start with a case and what it's like to end with a case. Every group will have their own role. So you'll have a child, a parent, an attorney, things like that. And so it'll walk you through.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Who's taking a picture?
Hi.
Okay.
What was the time on
We're doing it half a day. I can email more, or I can send some information to work.
May 4th? Okay.
Yeah. All right, then, cool. Let's see. If y'all want to, I'll come to the back.
Thank you.
Good picture.
Never seen the documentary, I can't remember what it's called, about ACEs, what's,
Resilience,
Resilience.
biology, stress, and science of health.
you make a point, to look that up, and watch that, it's very eye-opening.
We can arrange it anytime, let me know.
And we've been in the courthouse once before, and
Yes.
we can definitely do that again, because it's very eye-opening, the effects of adverse childhood experiences,
Definitely.
the long-lasting effects.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, this time I'd like to invite Ron Kitchens up to give us an update on the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce activities.
Thank you all.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Sorry it took me so long. I am at the end of, I'm middle of month 3. So we've had a lot going on. I am Ron Kitchens, and if you, know me or read anything about me, you'll know that we live by the value that the greatest force for change is a job. And so it's interesting to follow the group we did follow, because I grew up as one of those kids. So my mother is 15 years older than I am. My father's 16 years old. Neither of my parents attended high school. My father was illiterate, was killed in an industrial accident when he was when I was 4 because he couldn't read the sign that said, "Don't do that." So I grew up within and out of the system, understand what poverty and lack of a job and lack of an opportunity does to families, does to children, and how it impacts our community and society, both positively and negatively. So it's an honor to follow such a tremendous group because I know the impact they're having. So, for us at the Chamber, we really realigned our strategies. And so, you'll find that hopefully we're never not talking about jobs. Fundamentally, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. Whether, you go back to the Bill Clinton campaign quote of, it's the economy, stupid. For us, it's jobs. And more and better jobs. So we've got to constantly be focusing on that. First and foremost, it's existing companies. It's working with them every day, asking, what are your needs, wants, and desires, and helping to achieve those. And sometimes it's very simple things that we have the ability to solve that they think is unsolvable. But because of our relationships, of the people we know, and the capacities we have, we can easily aid companies in adding new jobs. And we're finding those opportunities almost on a daily basis. It's our team this year will make about 400 one-on-one visits with existing employers, primary employers, asking that question of what's your needs, wants, and desires. How do we help you grow your company? Secondly, it's attracting new companies to the community. And new companies are important because we know we're going to see companies leave. We know we're going to see them get bought and shrink in size. We know there will be change constantly with our existing companies, so we have to constantly be working to replenish and replace those. And so this year, we should see somewhere around 300 interactions with companies or site selectors that we're selling the community, saying, here's why you should be here, here's the benefits of that. Formally, we'll probably 75 to 80 proposals will go out the door where a company says, I have a need, give me a proposal on why it should be you. And so we're refining that, we're getting better at that, and we're accelerating the numbers that we're doing there. Working with existing small business, we know that small business is the heartblood of any community, and particularly in communities that are so dependent on local sales tax. If we don't drive the growth of small business, we know that people will vote with their dollars and they'll buy things on Amazon, they'll go to the Metroplex to shop. We know we have to grow the offerings of small business, help them be more competitive, and give them opportunities to thrive in a new marketplace. And then helping create new companies. So when we look at our data, it tells us that we're underperforming the state and the nation in the startup and success of new small businesses, particularly those that are women-owned. And so it's Women's History Month, but the data is clear that we can do better. And for me, that's low-hanging fruit. If the data tells me we're underserving, simply by serving that, we should see the same results as our peers do around the nation and the state. So we'll continue to focus there. And we're retooling the organization. When I arrived, we had 4 openings. We've had a couple others transition, stayed in the community, but we're able to get jobs that better met their needs. So adding new staff, have been very focused on targeting folks to come home. So, using some tools out there like LinkedIn, where we can find folks who were educated here, raised here, moved away, and to come back. And so we're targeting those. We're finding success in getting people to apply. We've hired one, Mariah Williams. We're able to bring her and her husband back from the Hill Country. He's joined and is in training right now at the fire department. And Mariah leads our existing business strategy. So, but we have 3 interviews in the next 2 weeks that are all folks that have a history here, a family here, that we can bring home to grow jobs. So we think that's critically important. One of the things you'll see if you come into our office is we have pretty high expectations. So if you come in, we can tell you the performance metrics for every single person on the staff. And so, as a board member, the judge will see that on a regular basis, but we calculate it every 2 weeks. How are you doing against our goals? And we don't call them goals. Goals are like, that New Year's Eve, pledge that you make that you're going to lose weight, and then you eat chocolate cake on the 3rd. That's goals kind of feel like that. Ours are expectations. What are the expectations we should have when we apply the resources, time, talent, and treasure to the work? What should we be achieving as the outcome? And so every single person on the staff has a scorecard that they know what's expected of them, what their outcomes should be, and what the return on investment should be that we're making into them and into the community. We're seeing pretty strong deal flow. That's the heart blood of things. For us, the deal flow is a little, it feels a little like planning right now. A lot of companies are getting their ducks in a row, but there are a lot of them talking about interest rates. So waiting to see what the flow of money is going to do before they make decisions. Although we're seeing significant, I think we have 6 existing companies that we expect to break ground in the next 6 to 9 months on significant expansions, regardless of what interest rates do. So we're spending a lot of time with them. A lot of time companies are looking at new equipment with this shortage of labor, and that shortage of labor isn't going to get better anywhere else. Baby boomers are retiring, and fewer people are interested in coming into the workforce, so you got to modernize. And so we're seeing a lot of that go on as well, a lot of new investments. So, we continue the construction and development at the industrial park. That's moving along nicely. Our biggest issue now in infrastructure is lack of buildings. When I drove in last night from the airport in Dallas and passed 2.5 million square feet of available industrial space between there and home, that's we're competing against that. And speed to market is critical for companies. So we're going to have to begin to look at how we can ensure that we've got space for companies to occupy very quickly if we expect to take advantage of those opportunities. But I'd be glad to answer any other questions you might have.
Ron, I've got a
Yes.
question. What is the latest update on our modular home group coming in?
Yeah, I just met with them. They are, by their own admission, a little slow. They apparently had a contract let for someone to come in to do the design, and that company's just gotten way behind on them. And so I was just out there 3 weeks ago with them. Everything seems to be moving forward. I frankly was a little scared with interest rates that their demand was pushed down. And they said, well, we're not building this for today's demand. We're building it for tomorrow. And we think we're still very strong. But they've got to get their construction plans done. And but they're, we actually took somebody to them and said, hey, if you're not going to use this, I have somebody who could use it for a few years. And they turned us down. So.
That's exciting.
Yep, and then you all should have received invitations for a briefing with Panda Bio. And so Panda's moving forward. About 80% of the equipment is in the building. The other 20% is being manufactured right now. Their key issue and that they're focused on, and as she'll tell you when they're in, is farmers to plant products. We've got to get it about 300-mile radius is where they've got to grow it. Otherwise, the trucking costs just take out all the profit. So they're working on that right now pretty strongly.
There is good research going on now and I stay pretty close to it because I'm interested in it, but Dr. Troxel is running that research program in Lubbock, and I talk to him about once a month, and they are making some progress, but it is a slow process to get it to where we need to be. We're still working on variety, we're still working on chemistry, still working on just making it fit the rolling plains of Texas. It's a great product, it's gonna happen, it's just gonna take a while.
It is, and nothing happens well, and simply convincing farmers who are already have so much risk in their life that this is a product they could add to their product lines, to their production, and make money on it. And then, and there's still the issue of insurance
One of the big
for the crop.
topics is crop insurance. I testified for the Farm Bill Committee, the House Committee, just a week ago in Waco, and that's one of the discussions we had was adding it to federal crop insurance. So I think there is some possibility that we can get that done, and if we can put that in the program, that's going to move us along a lot quicker.
Yeah, I know. I'm in D.C. in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and that's on the agenda too. We're meeting with the ag folks to talk about that very issue.
Luckily,
as well.
Congressman Jackson is on that
Absolutely.
that ag committee, and that's making that opens some doors for us to have that discussion. So that helps a bunch.
Yeah, but you're right. It's going to go slower than any of us want. But we're building
But
this
when it
function
gets
could
here-
be a new industry sector
It's
for
going
us.
to be it's tremendous when
Yep.
we get there.
Yep.
I'm still excited about it. It's just I don't know if I'll be there to do it, but the next generation will. And really and truly, that's part of the challenge.
That's it.
Is you go through these generational changes in a lot of these operations, and that's when you make those moves. But the timing couldn't have been worse on this deal, because just right in the middle of this thing, we get into the pandemic deal,
Yep.
shuts a lot of things down. The world market changed for all commodities, and it's just it's just one of those worst case scenario deals that nobody had any control over.
That's
But
right.
it's,
Yep.
I'm excited. It's still a great product.
And remind ourselves, if we hadn't have gotten in on this when we did, we probably couldn't be competitive for it now.
Absolutely.
And we got to ride this horse to the end of the race.
Well, there's some being raised in South Texas now, and we're watching it very closely. So maybe it'll come around. But it's there's nothing wrong with the product. We just got to get to where we can do it.
That's right.
And Ron, what about 4A's expenditures? Or is there consideration of maybe spec buildings that they would put out the business park, or a warehouse nature?
Yeah.
Or?
They've asked us to look at the viability, what the market would be, pricing. Pricing is finally stabilizing. We reached out a couple of months ago to some developers out of the Metroplex who are putting these things up all over North Texas, see if we could get some ideas. And the prices were so crazy. I would suspect next month we'll have a much better idea of costs and timelines and what we need. We know we're not going to end up doing like they're doing in Fort Worth of, to see 1 million square foot tilt up concrete, 38-foot sidewall building going up. Man, whoever's doing that's got more courage than I do. But we know it's probably in that 100,000 expandable to 300 that we're probably at, all steel with the masonry facade.
Yeah.
So the CAD edition is a nice move forward.
Yep.
To let people know that we can be in that business. And, I'm excited about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Are we targeting any one sector, or I know previous we were looking at aerospace? But
Aerospace and aviation is key for us. We've got some studies going on right now about why we can be competitive on that. That's critical for us. Traditional manufacturing, with what's happening bringing manufacturing back from China and Asia, we're seeing a keen interest in traditional blocking and tackling manufacturing. And so we know there's some opportunities there. We're looking at military, and the military has changed fairly dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years with the Space Command, Space Force new branch coming on. What the Pentagon has said is we don't want to build any more new facilities. We want you to move facilities around the country to right-size existing facilities. So last week it was announced that there's a whole helicopter group moving from Houston to San Antonio, 250 jobs. And so that's beginning to happen all around the country. So we could be victims of
for
that,
those.
but we could compete for those. And so there's a big effort. That's one of the reasons I'm in Washington twice in the next month, is how do we set ourselves up to compete for those? Lawton just, they bought the mall. The Economic Development Group bought the mall, and they're converting it into all offices for federal military suppliers.
Wow.
So their target is to go after that. Nationally, that's called the Huntsville model. Huntsville, Alabama's done it and thrived at it. So we've got to figure out what our strategy is, and we're doing all those due diligences right now to think, who are we really, not who we say we are, we think we are, but who are we really on paper? And so we can go after that much more strategically and play defense against what we currently have.
Sure.
So we're not seeing, us getting whittled off.
Well, I think we have an identity crisis. I
Hmm?
don't think we've ever really identified who we are and actually target who we are and try to build on our foundation. I think we're trying to hit grand slam home runs and not taking the baseball balls.
That's right. Yep. You got to hit it. You got to have an idea that every 10 years it'd be nice, or 8 years to hit a home run.
Yeah.
But Ford just announced a new battery facility in Michigan. I started that site 18 years ago.
Wow.
18 years ago, we bought the option on that site, and we're marketing that site to big auto deals for 18 years before it got done, and now it's a $2.2 billion
So what do we
investment.
lack? I mean, we have great transportation networks. We have flat land abundant.
I think people is right now,
People.
buildings and people, and then knowing who we are and who we want to be. I think one of the things that perhaps it happened, and I just haven't seen the data, but I think the university hasn't been as engaged as they should be.
Well, that was going to be
And
my next question.
Yep.
Our two higher education schools, are we training the people for our community, or are we training our people for someone else's community?
yeah, and I think Vernon trains for us. Most
Okay.
of their graduates, today are non-traditional, so they're a little older. They're getting jobs and they're going to work in those jobs, and they may
Sure.
be 6 years later getting a new set of skills to do that. I think MSU, not to their detriment, I sat on the board of Western Michigan University for years, and so I understand higher education somewhat. And they don't see their job as building a workforce for a community. They operate in a global environment. It's about empowering people to do great things. But I don't think they were ever asked to be part of the strategies of what it takes. And the leadership there today wants to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean,
They want to be at the table and saying, well, for one thing, internships, vast majority of the people who get professional internships are getting them outside of the community. And the data is clear. If you have one internship in a community, it's about a 56% chance you stay in the community. If you do two, it goes to 80% chance you stay in the community. So if we want smart people who graduate from the university to stay here, we got to get them when they're freshmen and sophomores and juniors, not the day they graduate, hoping that they'll come apply to us. So we got to create better partnerships, and have put together not big on committees, but it's a committee of the president of the university, president of Vernon College, president of the ISD, myself, president of the hospital, a couple others, working on this very thing, the general from the base, on how we create, and it came out of Fall's Future 2.0, how we create a university town model for this community. So, the university, if you go to Fort Worth and you go to downtown Fort Worth, you would think you were in the middle of TCU's campus, and yet the campus is miles away. And we've got to cast a better vision for that and get folks, because we look at the base, any given time there are 8,000 college students out there. I mean, that's what they do. They train 19 and 20-year-olds for careers. It's the same thing as Vernon does. It's the same thing as MSU does. Let's create a more robust model that recognizes that at any given time, we have about 25,000 college students in the community. Let's embrace that and
but they're all
celebrate.
transient and they move on.
They got a choice of where they can be.
Yeah,
and
we're not keeping them.
Nope, and we're not building relationships. So, if we have a woman in our office who leads our military affairs. Her husband is in the military, in the Air Force. He's an instructor. He wanted to come back here to instruct because he had such a great experience when he was a student here. And but that's an anomaly. Most do not feel that way. So we've got to change that. And the more we can do to create people who have love and passion for the community, the more results we're going to see of investment and more and better jobs.
Well, how can we partner?
I don't know yet, but I'll be back.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't want to under ask. And we've got to create that.
That's why I asked you to
Yep.
come today, because
Yep.
it's all of our future, and we need to all be in it together and
That's right.
working for a common goal.
And it's a war for jobs. We compete every day, and if we're not treating it with a war mentality, then we're going to lose.
Yeah,
And that means all hands on deck.
sure.
One final question, Ron, and I really appreciate all of us do you coming and speaking with us. But week before last, I investigated flying out of Wichita Falls to Austin, Texas, and I quickly realized that American was a different contractor in Lawton, Oklahoma than the American contractor in Wichita Falls, but the price was twice. Out of Wichita Falls to Austin, $800 versus $400 for a round trip, and me just traveling 40 minutes. What drives that? Or that's got to be a detriment to us in our
Yeah,
community.
so we're working with the airport and the city to try to get a meeting with American, and beginning to look at how we bring in other providers. I'm a guy who preaches buy local every day, and I've yet to be able to fly from Wichita Falls. I can't sit at the airport for 7 hours in Dallas waiting to change flights. I can't making this work. So we've got to get better answers on that. But I'm also very worried because it used to be that the federal government mandated an airport of our size have service. And they subsidize the airlines to do that. Well, with the pilot shortage, they're now allowing airlines to cease service. And they're saying it's temporary, but temporary shutoffs tend to be, as we've seen during COVID, temporary changes a lot of times have long-term impacts. And so we've got to make sure we've got a relationship where that's not happening, and really get their input on why the service, both times and quality, lacks so much, and what can we do about it? Where can we partner with that? Because I will tell you, I hear day after day that companies are like, well, we'd like to fly out of here, but we can't make it work. Well, what does that look like? Do we partner with American or somebody else to make it work? But, I was in Corpus for years, and, and Corpus is a great place to fly out of till Southwest left. And now it's pretty much impossible. And we are at that point now, and it's pretty easy to go to. It's really impossible if we lose that twice a day service. But it's hard for me to imagine Lawton can justify 4, 5, or 6 flights a day, and we're at 2. We gotta sort that out.
Yeah.
But first, we gotta go ask why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Ron,
again so much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate you coming.
I appreciate you
Thank
all
you.
very much. Thank you.
All right, it's 10:34. This time we open up for public comment. As a reminder, we ask that people limit their comments to 5 minutes, and anything talked about during this time, no action can be taken by the court. So at this time, anyone who has public comment, welcome to come forward. Okay. Is there anyone by Zoom? Okay. It is still 10:34, and this time of public comment is closed. So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I do have a question or a comment, basically, Judge, on one of the items here. It just had dawned on me, and it may be directed to Cheryl, but on these quotes that we do, and we've always done, where these properties held by other entities that have come back to them for tax dollars, could we get the breakdown of that? We don't necessarily realize, I guess, that we're authorizing the county judge to sign, but we may have been giving every penny of our tax dollar away in the signing of it. That money could belong to the entity selling it, and they've made a deal or cut out the others, because these are struck items, and they've been negotiated back. And I just wondered, to make sure that we are receiving some form of a cut, like this 8,500, what share of that is ours?
My Bert's not getting all that. It should be a cut.
It should be. It should be a three-way breakdown, or in most instances, three, and sometimes only two, but I just wanted to see if we could, do we see, how are we getting that request? Because they come from
It
elected.
never comes from me, so I don't see it until this is the court agenda. I thought Purdue Brandfelder was handling
Is that
most
what-
of that.
And maybe I can ask a
I
question
can
to
ask
see if
Tony.
they can break it. Okay.
Yeah, I can get with Tony. and
Good
ask
deal.
him.
I just thought it would be good to see.
Oh, no, absolutely. It really should be in the packet. We should have a breakdown on what it's gonna pay.
Yeah, it's a good idea for the future.
Just a little bit on item 7, the canopies, it's 12,309. Just for a little backstory on that, when we originally had the bids for the exterior annex work, we had a much more expensive canopy system that was pulled out because I didn't think it was a good spend of those dollars. Matt, do you remember what it was?
It was somewhere around
80,000?
$70,000 to $80,000.
Yeah.
It was
So-
insane for like these pre-finished aluminum canopies that would have looked nice, but we weren't expecting to be anywhere near half of that.
Yeah, so we looked at multiple options over several months now and settled on this much more reasonable cost. So, yeah, it is in addition to the project, but when you take into account that we removed about a $70,000 to $80,000 spend initially, it's a much better item than originally.
I'll make the motion, Judge, that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, comments from commissioners? Any public comment on consent agenda items? Okay. Motion has been made by Commissioner Watts and seconded by Commissioner Fincannon to approve the consent agenda items. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to general business. Item number 1, review and approve the regular bills for payment. Order County Treasurer to disperse payroll and bill payments within 72 hours via U.S. mail, FedEx, UPS, or electronically, unless directed otherwise, or may be picked up and ledgered in the Treasurer's office.
So moved.
All right, do we have any public comment on item 1? Okay, the motion to approve has been made by Commissioner Beecham, seconded by Commissioner Fincannon. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 2. Discuss, consider, and/or take action to award contract for air filters at the LEC from the 4 quotes submitted. This cost will be paid from Department 511 with specific lines determined by the county auditor.
I would ask that we pull this and put it back on for next week, just pending some new information. There are multiple different types of filters within this bid, or these quotes, for different MERV ratings. The MERV rating is how fine a particulate that an air filter can remove from the air. There's some question as to whether or not we need such high MERV ratings on some of the units. So I've asked both Rick and Harper Perkins to help me weed through all that to get a better answer. So we're not overspending unnecessarily.
Well, good. And I talked with Commissioner Beecham this morning. The quotes were not apples to apples either, which made it really difficult to determine what we were looking at and what the actual cost was. So,
No, it's something we've got to do. It just, I would like another week to work on it.
Okay.
Get some better knowledge for myself, make sure we're spending money wisely, not throwing money out the window.
Is there any objection to them pulling that down? Okay. All right. All right, that takes us to item number 3. Discuss, consider, and/or take action to approve webfire quote number 494 in the amount of $15,277 to install fiber in the Wichita County Courthouse to be paid from Department 412 with specific lines determined by the county auditor. Ms. Brendan, will you give just a brief presentation of what this would be doing?
This is just to upgrade our backbone. We rely on different switches through different parts of the courthouse, and the infrastructure behind it is lagging. So we need to get that built up so that when more projects happen on other floors, we'll be ready for them. And it's something we've been needing to do for a while, and this is a good time to do it before we start populating more people in more areas.
So is this an effort, I'm probably going to mess this up, but we've got certain speed of data coming in, and then it hits the courthouse, and then internally within the building, it's getting bottlenecked here. Is that what this is addressing, or is this something different?
It is addressing that as well. Before some of the construction started, we had fiber lines there. Once fiber sits for so long, if you move it, it breaks, and we've lost a few lines that way. So it's time to replace them. That way we can go back to the higher speed backbone. And yes, it is. We are bottlenecked from our connection to the LEC because it's a much higher speed than we're capable of actually bringing into our server room. And this will solve that issue as well. How old is the fiber that they replaced? I don't know the exact age of it. It's got to be more than 10 years old.
That's what I was fixing to say, it had to be.
Yeah.
And this is just work here in the courthouse?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I'd make that motion that we move forward.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Any public comment on this item? All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Watts and seconded by Commissioner Beecham to approve this webfire quote number 494 in the amount of $15,277. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. All right, moving along to item number 4. Discuss, consider, and/or take action to approve M&F County Annex 2022 renovations proposal request number 7 to add exterior neon corner sign, including engineering, installation, and electrical at an additional cost of $21,383 to be paid from permanent improvement funds.
Yeah, I've asked, Matt's shaking his head. No, I've asked Matt to come and help speak on this. We originally had $15,000 in the budget in order to do metal art. That's what it's called out under the project, metal art, which would have been a sign. After
Yeah, specifically, it was a large county seal above the doors.
Yeah, then we moved to the corner sign, unlighted. The corner sign unlighted would be $15,000 plus mounting and engineering cost.
Correct. Yeah.
This is a lighted sign with the engineering cost and mounting cost. Corner sign with the additional $6,383 attached to it for, again, some of that's engineering cost, which we would have incurred with moving it to the corner anyway. Some of that is the electrical cost.
But we also feel, Mark, don't we, that this sign has a long life. It has an adequate outside life. to it.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it's a exterior design sign, so.
And I think it really is an attribute to the building. I mean, it's just something very unique, and we, of course, grew up with the movie theaters having the neon stuff, and it's always, to me, it's a very attractive feature.
Yeah, once we saw that picture from the Chrysler dealership and seeing that sign out there, I mean, that really changed a whole lot of things. And like Mark said, we already had 15,000 in there to do something on the outside, and so to try and bring all that back, it would say annex down it. I mean, so we kind of need to still have that same essence of the dealership, but yet also be a county fixture on the corner. And Davis Signs, who quoted it, is very excited about it. So.
Yeah, I don't think, they gave us the same quote for both the neon sign or just to have the county emblem at the bottom lit only.
Yeah.
So,
Just to run them, just looking at the numbers here, so there was 15,000 for the metal art allowance that was already approved. This quote comes in at 21,383, so that extra 6,300 is going to come out of contingency?
Yes.
Okay, so after we did the exterior canopies today,
Yep.
that took it down to 48,359. This will be another 63.
41,976.
41,976 is what the contingency allowance will have if the court approves this. And this is for the entire annex renovation, that contingency allowance?
Yes.
Correct.
And there won't be any more signs on the annex other than this one?
the
This
whole,
will take care of the seals. We're not gonna turn around
No.
metal art on the.
no, well,
on the inside again.
there is a sign on the front.
Yeah.
Look at the drawings, the whole front and say Wichita.
Wichita,
Annex,
yeah.
so.
But this is just a corner.
Is that Wichita County Annex on the east side already figured into the budget?
Yes.
Yes,
Or will it-
Yes,
yeah.
it's already.
No, it's already part of the budget.
Because the original metal art was 15,000, that 6,000 difference, that 15,000 would have still had some engineering and
It
installation.
still has
of
the same
sign.
engineering, not
Right.
installation, but the engineering, which I believe we've already contracted the engineer and has already done the legwork to look at this, so.
Because I
we
would
can't move
probably
forward.
not been for an additional $21,000
No.
being
Correct,
spent on a
yeah.
neon sign.
No.
To me, that's not good taxpayer money.
Right.
So,
Is there an electric eye of some sort that?
It'll be hooked up to the same building lighting for the exterior, because we've got downlights and uplights to light those columns.
Okay.
Once we added those vertically.
So they come on all at the
Everything.
same time, go off at the same time? I think it's a great added feature, and I'd make a motion we move forward with the sign.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on this item? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item? Anyone via Zoom? Okay. All right, the motion to approve proposal request number 7 at a cost of $21,383 has been made by Commissioner Watts, seconded by Commissioner Mahler. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, receive update on elections management and election records retention. Commissioner Fincan?
favorite part of today's meeting. All right, this is more of a meeting just to explain to the other commissioners in the court and the people watching what we have been doing over the past several weeks in reference to mainly to the 2020 election open records request. Primarily everything that I've done is in reference to open records request, primarily from a group of concerned citizens that are not I'll say not happy with the outcome of the 2020 election, or not happy with the information they've been given. That might be a better word, because since that election, they have made numerous open records requests to the county. They've been given inaccurate information. They've been given inaccurate, just probably the wrong information, maybe not the right titled information. So over the last couple of weeks, after the county clerk asked me to step in and help do this, we have worked with the county clerk's office to go back and put, if y'all remember, February the 13th, Joe spoke to the court and said that he demanded us to go back and try to help do that. He actually called out myself and my wife, saying that he had been to ask us before to help, and that we kind of failed to help him. It was basically the gist of what he said. So that particular day, my wife turned in some open records request, and I went and talked to the county clerk, and she asked me to help. Myself and the county clerk actually went to the warehouse. We went to the county clerk's office, where they do all the ballot keeping, ballot central, you might say, and we started looking for items that maybe were missing. We searched that whole office, couldn't really find anything. We went to the elections warehouse. At that warehouse, the county clerk found a large box that had ballots in it, that at the time, there were people here at the court reviewing ballots, and we thought they were all here at the courthouse. We found a box of ballots which appeared to be original mail-in ballots, but I didn't come to the court, and I didn't go to the media up front or these people and tell them they were ballots until we went through and inventoried and figured out exactly what they were, because I wasn't sure at that time if these were copies, if these were originals, if they were what they were. So I wasn't going to call them anything at first. So the following week, brought them to the courthouse. I actually called the judge over there at that time to show him what we had found. Because really, I was kind of upset that we found that when all of them were supposed to be here. So we brought them to the courthouse. The following day, in the county clerk's office, we started inventorying all this box of supposed ballots. I can tell you that there was a large box. In that box, there were batches of ballots. We went through and inventoried every one of them. There were basically 103, some bundled, some not, but 103 batches of ballots. And some of these batches might have 3, some of them might have 30. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. So we went through inventory and all that. I also, in that same box, there was some logs, some duplicating logs that were found that were just by themselves. There were some applications for limited ballots. There were 53 provisional ballots. And then there were 13 loose items, and there's been several questions about what these loose items were. And to tell you, those loose items were like single pages that had been taken off of a ballot, second page or third page, and they got dislodged from their original ballot, and they were just loose. So I just called them all loose items. Over the next 2 weeks, staff from the clerk's office, and with the assistance of my wife, which was asked to by the county clerk help, we started going back through matching all these, trying to figure out original mail-in ballots we had. And at that 13th meeting, or the meeting before that, Joe had brought to the attention of the court that he was upset about the mail-in ballots, but the numbers being off. But he also brought up the 843 votes that he thought he was under. You had more votes than you had voters, because he didn't have enough early voting ballots, the originals. They were missing. So I thought when we found this box that we had maybe fixed that problem. I didn't know. Or I say fix that problem. Maybe we can account for more of them.
Right.
So after going through those in an inventory, there were roughly 1,310 possibly ballots located. So that's what was located in that time. Over that next 2 weeks, we started going back through, matching those early voting ballots to the ballots. There were a lot of these ballots that came in on the mail were duplicated on a log. And for the paper being bad, or I don't know if y'all remember, we had problems with voter paper. We had voter ink problems. where they wouldn't scan. So some of these ballots had been coming in the mail. They had been duplicated and then been duplicated again and maybe up to 3 times. And they weren't, ballots have how many different numbers on them? 6 different serial numbers? 10? So 10 different serial numbers over a ballot. And you have multiple people duplicating these ballots. And I won't say that they were trained properly or they weren't trained properly, but different people wrote down the ballot numbers. They took them off different places of the ballot, which caused a lot of problem. You might have a number from the back, it might have the actual number, or they would take this digit, it might be a 10-digit serial number, and they would only write down 4 of the numbers on it, and you didn't know where they were from the end or the middle. So it took weeks and weeks to track this down, but finally, after all that was done, I'm amazed, and I'll be honest with you, I'm truthfully amazed at how close we got it. Because after the 103 batches we found that day, we ended up being given some more ballots that were in the county clerk's office at one of the workers' desk. So we had to make more batches. And then we have miscellaneous, we have 1 miscellaneous batch. But after we get all said and done, we come up with 4,248 matched ballots. And then we have 48 ballots that are missing some kind of items. Either we have the duplicated ballot or we have the original ballot, but we might not have both. But anyway, out of all these, the original vote that was turned into the state for mail-in ballots was 4,258. And we're around that 4,248 to 4,296 in that area. I was impressed that no matter what, we got within 1% of the vote that we show, and maybe down as far as 0.5% of matched up. The problem is we're still missing, some of those were missing the original mail-in ballot. We have the duplicated, or we have the duplicated one and not the original. Through this whole check and investigation, talking to staff, talking to people that worked it, there was times that certain things are supposed to be logged in and out, like a mail-in ballots that were sent out, a track kept, mail-in ballots that are received, a track kept. There's that were not entered properly to start with. They weren't. The workers that are in there were told, not to do it, or it's a waste of time. I don't know if some of this stuff has been thrown away. We've took boxes of stuff, I think, and tried to put it back together as best we can, but I'm never going to be able to get it back perfect. We've tried. And I'm really kind of at the point to where I'm tired of looking at ballots. I'm tired of messing with this because we don't have the electronic information that we need. We're trying to put together a puzzle with pieces from 2.5 years ago, and we don't have them all. So I think we've got probably as close as we can get it. And I've went to the group and also explained all this to them and let them ask questions, and we answered them. And they're going back through them again, but I don't know at this point I don't know how we can put together any more information to make it better, but we have done, trying to open their open records request, we've done as much as I think we can to go that way, and we're showing them everything that we know to show them. I just don't know how to go any further.
Something I was reminded of when you were talking, to even confuse the situation greater in the course after 2020, we brought in some shelving and I'm sure messed up everything, adding some shelving to the warehouse to put the new equipment on in the course of doing business. Lori bought some, Mark found us some, and I'm sure that didn't help any of the mismatch of where things were on shelving or not on shelving. So I'd forgotten about us doing that.
Well, I don't, as far as what we can do to move forward, this is, and we've said lots of things about this 2020 election. The record keeping was not pretty. I'll tell you that right now. It just wasn't pretty. There wasn't anything about it that I like, and the group has actually asked us to be mad about it and upset about it. And I say I'm probably as upset as anybody because I'm the one that stepped out here trying to figure it out. I can tell you that with the new clerk, new judge, and me here, and actually after us going through all this and learning about it, it's probably a positive thing for the county to realize that it was so bad so we can see our failures, but it won't be that way in the future. But I don't know how we can ever go back and fix. We can't go back and fix it. We can't go back and change it. So that's where I'm at on that. Is there anything I missed in that you?
No, you covered it. This is a learning curve for us, and we just know what we have to do with this next election coming up, so.
Well, and so that segues, I'd like to address the court and the public. One of the things I think personally and as a group, if in government situation, there's three things I think we should always strive for. We should be excellent in what we do, we should be efficient in what we do, and we should be transparent in what we do. As part of that, I had been going back and forth with the Secretary of State's office and got in touch with them last week, and I spoke with both the head of their audits division and the head of their election training division. I was originally supposed to talk with the head of their elections division, but with it being the middle of session, it was hard to get in touch with her last week, so still waiting on that. But so I just want to give a brief update on what came from that call. So on the training front, they got in touch with Ms. Stanley, our county clerk, and they are going to be sending trainers up to help our elections team on a variety of tasks. How to do poll worker training. They're going to help us with both on the front end and the back end, best practices, how to set ourselves up for success on the information we're getting in, how we prepare for both early voting, election day, and mail-in ballots. And then on the back end, how we make sure that when we're inputting things, how we are able to retain the records well. And Annette, feel free to jump in if I miss anything. You talked with her a lot longer on what that training would look like. One of the things that has become clear through the course of gathering information and organizing it for open records request responses is records retention in elections is complicated and needs to be done well and in a way that you can go back and find things as they were on the day that it happened. I think another part of the training that they're going to be doing is helping us on our voter registration rolls and making sure that we're doing what we need to do on a regular basis to keep those updated and accurate. And I know that Ms. Stanley also reached out to HART, the company who provides our voting equipment, and they're also going to be sending some training folks up to help us with this next upcoming May election and also make sure we're doing what we need to be doing that's the best way to put it, to make sure we're doing what we need to be doing.
This is more of train the trainer, right?
This is training the trainers.
And how to use their software and their products. We're gonna start from ground zero and we've never seen it before, and they're gonna train us from beginning to end.
Gotcha.
And they, quite frankly, it was refreshing. The head of their training division, she was excited to have their folks come up here and help us because we had a new clerk, mostly a new elections team. They know how complicated it is and how coming in at daunting it can be, and so they're going to be helping us with that. On the audit front, had a good conversation with the head of the Secretary of State's Audits Division because I was asking him about how we could volunteer to be a part of the Secretary of State audit to come in for our upcoming elections, whether it's this May one or this November one. Could we do that and how? And I did that because I think everyone on this court shares a desire and an understanding that trust in free and fair elections and the veracity of those is a cornerstone of our government. I mean, we've had a lot of passionate folks come and address this board about the importance of it, and I agree. I think we've got to know that what we're getting is accurate and be able to trust that, and the public needs to. And I thought that getting an outside entity like the Secretary of State's office to come in and do that for us for these upcoming elections would help us. It would show if we had deficiencies where those are, so that we could address them. But also it would, if we are doing them well, and as part of that training effort we hope to be doing them well, that would help restore confidence from those who might have lost it. The bad news is that he said that they didn't think they had the statutory authority to be able to have us volunteer for them to come do that. Now, they have realized that this is a request that they're starting to get more often from counties that do want to ask for them to come in and do it. And so that might change with this legislative session. And with that being the case, and there might be an opportunity to change that. I'll be sending a letter to the Secretary of State going ahead and volunteering us for that. And then I'll also be talking to our legislative delegation and ask them to see what they can do in these remaining 2 months of session to help with that as well.
Is there anything filed currently that would address that?
Not that I'm aware of, and not that he could tell me, but I think that there's enough broad-based elections legislation that it could be
fit in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those 2 tracks of training and helping us with our processes, our best, and make sure we're adhering to best practices, and then coming in and checking us to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. I think those 2 trains will run in tandem to try to set us up for success moving forward for the rest of the year. And I do want to, while I don't think this will be the last time this court hears about this or talks about it, I did want to take this opportunity to thank some folks. I don't know that I realized prior to the initial meetings with some people in the public who had brought this up, listening to Commissioner Fincannon and Ms. Stanley. Our elections are complicated and they require a ton of good people volunteering to help us carry them out. And so I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of the dozens of people who serve as election volunteers every election. They're helping their neighbors, they're helping our communities, doing a job that's hard and thankless in a lot of ways. So I want to take the opportunity to thank them. I also wanted to thank the group of people who's been so passionate about this and who has come forward, who I initially started talking with them back in the fall of 2021 in a completely different role. Specifically, I wanted to call out and thank Mr. Gauthier and Ms. Jackson. Their work on this, they've spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, has done a good job of reminding all of us of the importance that we run our elections and all aspects of it well. One thing that anyone who has talked to me, I think, will hear me say all the time is I'm a believer that we can always get better. Personally, as an organization, we can. And their work on this has helped us, is going to help us do that, already has, and will continue to bear that fruit. So I want to thank everyone who's come and brought this up and been so passionate about it. But for the 2 of them specifically, I wanted to say thank you. I also want to thank Commissioner Fincannon. He is the primary liaison to our county clerk. When she asked for the help and needed it, he stepped up and he has devoted lots and lots of time and energy to helping her office respond to these public information requests. And he's just tried to take that ball and run with it to the best of his abilities. And so I wanted to specifically thank him for his efforts on this as well. And then finally, I wanted to applaud Ms. Stanley and thank her for her desire to take all of this and turn it into something good and fruitful moving forward. Managing elections has never been a simple task. In 2023, that is exceptionally so. Election law is complicated. and she's been on the job for the exact same number of days that I have. But she's thrown herself into learning it, and then while also still running the rest of the county clerk's office. She has also been willing to ask for help from the outside. I mean, when I came to her with the offers of help from the Secretary of State's office, she was glad to have it. Didn't want to hold it close, but wanted folks who had this technical expertise and ability to come in and help us. And so, for her and her team, I just wanted to thank her for that. I didn't expect this issue to be one which consumed so much of my or this court's attention for these first 3 months after I took office. And there have been times where that's been frustrating, I think, for each of us, because we all want our elections to be excellent, efficient, transparent. But I think the fact that a group of passionate citizens wouldn't let this go and kind of forced us to come to grips with a lot of it will help us, and we as a county will be better for it moving forward. So I've talked long enough. With that, I'll be happy to answer questions from
I agree with you tremendously, Judge. I think it's been something that's made us better. It always does. I want to add to that, just from my involvement in my political organization, I'm aware and want to thank Mickey's wife, Robin, for her tremendous, she is smart as a whip. She's very dedicated. She actually likes stuff about elections, and that takes her over the top for me because she is able to see all those things, wants to see them, and she's been a tremendous support. And she has a full-time commitment to a job her and Mickey are invested in, and so she's had to pull herself away from that to do these things, and I really appreciate that, Robin, for digging in there and willing to do. She's not much of a talker, but she's dedicated and got her head down, and she's a hard worker. So I appreciate that very much.
You can't really appreciate the difficulty in that deal till you walk down there and look at it. I went down several times and had Mickey walk me through, like, okay, what are we looking at? What is this? It's extremely difficult. Now, how do you wind up with 10 different numbers on a ballot? I mean, that was my question. The whole system, it lends itself to being overly complicated and difficult. But every time I went in the room and Mickey would go over some of it, you'd understand a little more about what we were dealing with. It's hard to describe what that is. There's so many different, avenues to that deal, but we're going to be better. We got to be better. It's got to be
One
right.
thing I'll bring up on that is the election equipment and the ballots that we had in 2020 are not the same election machines we have now.
No.
We have such a better system in place right now. Maybe with the better equipment that we have now, maybe with the staff learning some lessons from these prior elections on the records retention. I think I've always said our biggest problem with any kind of votes is the mail-in. Anytime you can put human error in there, to me, it makes it a bigger chance for failure. I'm really hoping that our new election equipment is going to make a world of difference in our records retention, in the way we're able to keep records in the future. So,
and the enhanced training, that's going to pay dividends.
Yeah.
So we got all the pieces in place to move forward to excellence. So,
and I told Annette this, I couldn't, there's no simpler election that occurred than when for 20 years I was at Pleasant Valley, and we'd have the council elections, and we never had a contested race the entire time I was there. And it couldn't have been simpler, but I did not like it. I didn't like any aspects of it. FEMA could come to town and look at our low water crossings. I was all over that, wanted to talk about it. But having to deal with Secretary of State and to turn in our information, get our ballots printed, none of that was. So unless you have a passion, like Annie and Joe and Robin have passion you just don't quite get it the same, or you just can't get invested the same. And I appreciate those that are, and Nanette, thank you for being willing to get help and do those things. So, because that's what it takes, is somebody both smart and passionate about it.
Okay, with that, unless there's more questions, we'll open it up to public comment on this item.
Gentlemen,
Ms.
Ms.
Jackson.
Jackson. First, I want to say regarding Mickey, Robin, and Annette, the stuff that they located was beyond enormous and breathtaking. It literally made me ill when I was in that room with him. That was, wow, something to see. And while I understand and appreciate the fact that we have new machines, the new equipment isn't going to correct one of the largest problems that we've come against. And it goes beyond 2020. We're now facing a similar issue with 2021 that I received during open records. Part of that issue is going to be the handling of absentee voters list. That is required. When the early voting board convenes, they're given a voters list. That list should have been handed to us from get-go when we requested those records. Instead, now if we request it again, we're going on a third set of numbers. That's unacceptable. What was done during that election should have been retained during that election, and I would hope that care would be taken for the next elections to come regarding that issue. And while I appreciate this court saying it is not their responsibility to request investigations or to press charges, this court does participate, I believe, in appointing certain people to boards during the elections, early voting board. Do y'all not go over the list and vote those people onto the early voting board? Is that not a process of this court?
I don't know. I don't recognize that, Annie, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily.
Names listed brought in from the county chairs. Robin, do you know?
I thought so.
I believe so.
I think they are approved by us.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think they're, if best of my memory, and I haven't been around too many times for that, but it seems like they're on the consent agenda to approve the people onto the ballot board.
Correct.
So,
But we don't
and
nominate.
I'm telling you right
No,
now.
you
there's
don't. The county chairs do.
There's not very many people, there's nobody on this court right now that's disagreeing with what you just said.
Right.
Or we're not opposed to it.
Right.
I can tell you right now, there is records lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find them, we can't find them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say it more clearly than that.
No, I agree.
There's records that we're never gonna find, that were not saved. And I've told, and the reason I'm saying this is because I've told the group this, I've told Annie this. They're asking for the same information from the 2021 election. The same people ran the elections and the same people were in charge of the 2020 as the 2021. We're not gonna have any better saved data from that election than we are the 2020.
Correct.
So, you can turn in open records requests, but I'm just telling you, there's not gonna be
Oh, I know.
any
I have.
magical.
I have, and I have gotten those back. And so this is my point. Moving forward, where it comes to mail-in absentee ballots, that process, I definitely hope
Right.
everyone pays attention to. It's imperative. So far, military votes have been duplicated 3 times. That's kind of crazy to me. But nonetheless, there are some answers, some questions that beg for answers. And that is, we have 2020, 2021 electronic ballot information gone. Nobody knows where they are or if they were ever saved. That's a crime. Second one is, again, with retention, like the voters list, not kept, violation of code. I mean, these things can't be ignored because these things can happen in future elections. And if people aren't reprimanded for the actions that they took against all of our community, every citizen in our community, what will they try to do again? Even if they aren't here, will somebody else come along and say, oh, I can get away with it without punishment? And if this court or no one will stand up and say, we had a problem and we need somebody with a badge to look at it, please direct us as to who we need to go to. Because it's serious, and that's really what I would like to know. I mean,
I'll address that because your group made a complaint to the sheriff's office. And as far as I know, as of right now, that complaint was forwarded to the Secretary of State. So they're the investigating agency on this. So I believe that what you're asking for us to do has already been done by that going to the Secretary of State. The complaint was made to the sheriff's office, and that complaint was then forwarded to the Secretary of State because the sheriff's department, there again, that's not something that they know how to investigate, would even know how, or they would need guidance from the Secretary of State anyway, and that whole deal was sent forward to them. So I don't know that we could do anything any more than that.
And I
didn't know they were at the Secretary of State.
I didn't bring this up in my update because I didn't have any new information to give. But they are checking on the status of that complaint at the Secretary of State's office to then update me so I can update.
So for the early voting board, all those that attended on the early voting board and will attend in the future will need training. Do we have an answer as to how it came to be that an entire early voting board circumvented the election code when it comes to the duplication process? How was that circumvented? Was that in the training process? Do we not understand the rules?
I don't quite understand the question.
Circumvented. The
Well, I
law
know that-
states, like with the duplicate ballots, that they're required
Oh,
to, right.
duplicate and.
That is correct.
And I believe that's all gonna, the best I can go back and look at just talking to people and seeing what was done, and you know this answer as well as I do, it's a failure to train, period. It's whoever was in charge of teaching them what to do and making it standardized across the board, because you've looked at those ballots as long as I have. There, some write old on them, some write original on them, some write nothing on them. So there wasn't any standard kept by who's doing the training. So that ball's gonna be in the court of the new county clerk and the new election staff. I think and that's all you can do at this point right now, Amy, is we're gonna have to, we can't change the past, we don't have a time machine, so all we can do is learn from our mistakes and fix them and go forward.
And so the new issue that has arisen in 2022 election, during training, there was data that was turned over, and it's been told by 3 poll workers that during training, that data was told that it is required in Wichita County to be kept.
You're talking about the slips for the poll pads?
I am. So what will we do then for that issue? Because with that issue, the direction by the previous clerk was to shred or throw them in the fireplace when they were found. So what happens with that?
So Ms. Stanley and I have talked about this for elections moving forward, and realizing that if those are going to be printed, they should be kept. They are a reconciliation tool. And she agrees. And if they're not going to be kept, then they need to not be printed. Code doesn't give an answer one way or the other on what we have to do there. I personally think it's a good reconciliation tool. And so therefore, if that's the case, then we'll train our folks on them, starting with this upcoming May election, to keep those as a reconciliation tool and to keep them as election records.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, I think I'm one of those election workers that was just referred to about those records. My wife and I worked the 22 primary and the 22 general, and I believe that was, the primary was the initiation of the first use of that machine. And our recollection, and we go to training, and my recollection is both of us were taught in that training that those were records and need kept. And when we worked the primary and the general, our team did that.
And again, you're talking about the pole pad slips.
Yeah, which was different than what we did in the 20 and 21 that printed that little piece of paper, which was not pertinent and disposed of. So a change in the 22 training to keep that, because it is a part of our record that's printed. So,
Okay.
and thank y'all for addressing. And you know, we're not quite done, but hopefully we will be soon.
Thanks, Danny. Do we have any other public comment on this item?
Annette, you want to speak to anything? Well, you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have
to. You don't have to at all. I'm just asking if there's anything you'd like to bring up.
I just want to add that, and I told Mickey, you know, if anybody in here, and there's plenty of us that were exposed to Odyssey, there was nothing more difficult and hard and tough to undergo the transaction to dive ourselves into Odyssey. Annette was one of those people that not only had to dive into understand Odyssey, but she had to reconcile a very growing long list of revenues that she incurred into her office, and she had to get them reconciled back into the record. And I was able to ascertain from all of that the ones that surfaced, because Annette stayed hooked. She kept her nose down, and she worked through that till she made sure she understood how those records played out. Odyssey was very complicated, so it gave me all the trust in the world in Annette to know that these, even though she's not been in the midst of election stuff throughout time, she is very dedicated, she is a very smart person, and she's able to and willing to get in the middle of it and understand. So, Annette, I've got a lot of confidence in us just going better and better.
Well, Annette's endured a baptism by fire, so, and has performed admirably. So,
Okay, first of all, I want to thank Mickey for stepping in and taking the brunt of everything. I mean, he has taken a lot of heat from the media, from a lot of people here, and I want to thank you personally. I want to thank Robin for coming in and helping me, because I couldn't have done it without her. She put lots of hours in. Also, I want to thank Annie and Joe for coming in and auditing, showing what we need to improve on, and I want to know that it is going to get better from here on out. At least I'm going to try. And with the state's help and with heart, I think we can make it. I did hit the ground running from day one, and it's been a challenge. It's been difficult, but I think we're going to get to where we need to be. That's all I have to say. And thank you for all the nice comments.
Thank you, Annette.
One other quick thing. You know, a lot of people thank Joe and Annie, and the judge hit on this briefly, but I just thank you not only for doing it, but your persistence. Your persistence in not giving up and not quit griping, because it is very hard when you're not given what you ask for, when you're given things incorrectly for what you ask for. It's very hard to keep fighting and moving forward. So really and truly, y'all originally came to me, and I originally tried to help you. If you wouldn't have kept being persistent, I wouldn't have. So I say that for the citizens, because anytime you're wanting change, you're wanting to see something through, you got to be persistent and keep digging at it. So I just want to thank you for your persistence.
I am married to Steve Jackson, so it rubs off.
Okay, is there any other public comment on this item? Okay, I won't forget this time. We'll move on to item number 6, receive update on courthouse renovation, elevator projects, and county courthouse annex.
it's all still in detail work. The asbestos abatement folks are going to be here this afternoon at the annex. Won't start work, but start the prep work, getting this area sealed off. Just would like to say to anyone working in the annex, when they seal that off, it is a completely airtight, sealed area. Please don't poke your head in the window or try to go in there. Stay away. But it's totally safe. That's why they do it. They tent the area. There's no risk to anyone working in the building while that's going on. So I've had several people asked me if there's any concern. No, there's absolutely not. It's totally monitored by the state, or by, not the state, but there's a permit, it's monitored, and the results of the monitoring goes to the state for approval, so no concerns there. Elevator, the lid for the elevator that was damaged during construction is due this week. Once it arrives, TK will be back on site to complete the 2 elevators here in the courthouse. Let's hope it's not delayed. Everything hinges on that lid coming back, but it's supposed to have been shipped, so we should see it this week. Other than that, finishing up some detail work. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a certificate of occupancy by the end of April. So, if everything goes well with the elevators. I should have stopped when I was ahead, but I said hopefully. Hopefully, not that I'm giving a date, but.
Any questions on that?
No, Judge, I just want to interject while I've got Ricky here and Mark both. Mark and I was talking about Ricky while we had risk management and listened to facilities personnel, that actually did stuff. And me and Mark was talking, but I got a phone call on Friday afternoon to specifically tell me that he wanted to make the comment to me what a rock star we had in a fellow by the name of Ricky Sykes. And I said, yeah, I know Ricky. And he said, well, he had to help him on Friday, and he was very appreciative. He said, your ducks are in a row, and he thought you were doing a great job. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for that. So.
Well, I'll say this. You need to teach the class next year. You do, on building maintenance.
Yeah, we went to that. Me and Mark both attended, and I think you'd be right in line with doing that. Rick.
I'm sure you're
someday I'll get paid like a rock star.
We're still at the county.
Maybe you start selling your autographs.
Your limo is waiting out front.
50 cent, you're a nickel.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, it is 11:32. This meeting is adjourned.